Welcome to your weekly program, BelAhdan, the show that brings the softer side of Muslims to your living room. Since the toppling of the ex-dictator Mubarak, he's been in power for 30 years, and toppling the military complex in Egypt that stayed with us 60 years, the election of the first civilian president in Egyptian history, 5,000 years history, the anti-Morsi, anti-Islamist in Egypt is getting bolder and it's getting louder. Islamophobia in Egypt is much like the Islamophobia here in the West, especially in the United States. The things are been said about Islam and the Islamists by liberal in Egypt that you only hear it from right-wing evangelical here in the United States. Who are those people? Who are the anti-Muslims, anti-Morsi's movement? Who are those liberals that are still in the streets protesting and demanding change? We have here our guest, the cool Salafy. We have Makled. We always, call on him when we are in trouble. He is really one of the, following what's going on in Egypt. I always enjoy talking to him. I find them easier to talk to him and argue with than arguing with other liberals. So he is with us here, Makled. He's an Egyptian American in computer science and all that. Welcome to BelAhdan, Maged. Thank you so much for coming. I know it's a new studio. It's very far away, but we appreciate that.
Thank you.
So is this what's going on in Egypt? Is this anti-Morsi, anti-Islamist? Is this really Islamophobia or Ikhwanophobia? What is the nature of that negative energy and opposition to anything Morsi's government is doing? Is this really a genuine indigenous movement, or is just the Egyptian cannot be governed anymore after toppling the biggest dictator in Egyptian history?
Right. First of all, categorizing them actually as liberal or secular, actually, I think it's like a really terrible categorization for them. For many reasons. To start, actually, these guys, they go against everything like liberal here in America. Liberal here in America actually on the streets, listen to people, what the people problems are, and they take this and they organize something. So they are connected to the people. You go there and you look at the liberals, so-called liberals in Egypt, and honestly, I don't think they are liberal at all.
Well, the left, the Christian, the activist, the Cannabis party,
Right.
the people who've been quiet for a while.
Right.
So there are a lot of people that are kind of disenchanted
Right.
with the change.
So what these guys actually, when they started, they were genuine. Honestly, like about 2 years ago, I would say. But their problem is that they were not connected to the people at all. You hear these guys talk, like they are just discussing a bunch of democratic theory, what the country should be all about. They're not connected to the people on the street. Mm-hmm. And that's their problem.
The Nukhba, the elites.
Yep. So to start with, actually, like they thought they're gonna get huge numbers in the first election, the parliament election in Egypt, and they ended up getting 6%. And I think about 15 parties, liberal parties together, they get about 6%, while the parties of Islamic backgrounds, or that they call themselves I hate that being called as Islamist,
Yeah.
but it's with the Islamic background.
The Salafy and the Brotherhood.
Yeah, about 70%, and that's why, because they're connected to the people on the street, listening to the people problems. So when these guys, so-called liberals, or I don't think they're just liberals. There's a lot of communists, liberals, and huge left. When these guys actually connect, they have no connection with the people on the street. When they come on TV, they have this narcissistic look and condescending view of the Egyptian society, and I think this is a huge reason that people don't vote for them, don't like them. When they come, when they lose, they call the Egyptian people ignorance. I mean, imagine me going to a farmland here in Nebraska or in Iowa, and telling them like, vote for me or I'm going to call you an ignorant.
Well, we have the same issue, or red state and blue state. Do we have something like that? Because they are strong in the big city, urban city, Cairo, Alexandria. But when like they got almost 45 or 43% on a referendum, the Constitution, the first time. But the second time they got only 22 or whatever.
For the rest of the states,
when I went to the small town and so, but is there grievance? Is there a legitimacy in their grievances? Because there is a lot of there are some few missteps made by Morsi. The referendum for Constitution and some kind of give him some kind of above the law kind of thing. So really, he tipped them off. I mean, the guy's not helping himself.
Well, to start with, I mean, like if you hear these guys talk all the time, they always like they have this as if they're copycat of each other. What they say is they always say, you either like we want a constitution that is consensual and representative of the Egyptian people, like everybody from like these guys' party. That's the two things that they always say.
Yeah.
But really, without defining what that means, when actually people were going for the parliaments. They knew exactly that this parliament is going to be the one that choose the committee that established the constitution.
Yeah.
So, and like I said before, it was the liberal parties were about 6%, while the parties, 3 or 4 different parties with Islamic backgrounds, they had about 70 or 72%. And let's look at the constitution committee. Actually, I have like a numbers for you. Like, it was 48% of the, like I said, 70%. While and their percentage in Constitution Committee were 48%, and on the other hand, there were like the rest either independent or from liberal parties. And let's take a look at what are those people that were in the Constitution Committee. The judges and lawyers and the people with law background were 18%. Researcher and thinker and writers were about 15%. University professors, 15%. Young guys were about under 40, were about 8%. 6 head of different unions were 6%. Women, 6%. Copts, 6%.
Did they stay throughout? I know some of those left.
Well, that's towards the end.
Yeah.
So that's all that stuff. So it was really representative. So when people win election here in the United States, going for a parliament, for the Congress, you cannot tell like the people like, the president after winning, you have to be representative and half of your cabinet have to be Republican. That does not make any sense.
No. Yeah, but this is, I mean, the United States was like that 100 years ago. I mean, that was not a well-established institution, and the timing of the election in Egypt also, some people have some reservation there. But what I'm saying, the language that are being used from both sides. I've seen, I've lived in this country 30 years. I've never got that many Christmas greeting and Happy New Year from Egypt like this year. So this is really like a call. I mean, Christmas is still a religious holiday, and they are celebrated as a secular holiday, as a Western holiday, and fireworks and drinks and all that. So they are angry. They are doing whatever it takes to tip and taunting the Islamists. So talk us a little bit about where is this fervor coming from?
Actually, honestly, I think like what they got in this last 2 or 3 weeks around the Constitution, voting for the referendum for the Constitution, they knew as 6% they cannot do anything, and they got tons of help, with Mubarak people, and this is like a huge mistake on their end. And
when help, you mean finance?
Finance, and supported by a lot of thugs, if you will, because that's what the language that Mubarak people understand. It's just they have the money, they are the fat cats, they have the money, and they put the money towards like the thugs, and thugs just living off their paycheck. So without that, and this is all what happened, like attacking 38 or 36 or 38. Like the Freedom and Justice parties.
Yeah, the Noor.
Yeah, and the Noor party, and like burning them, and at the same time, surrounding and this 80-year-old imam in Alexandria with in a big mosque, and And all that stuff, no person in the right state of mind or a revolutionist that I would call that would attack an 86-year-old, for something that he did not say. So these things are planned to, stop everything to actually, defer, the Constitution referendum, and for many reasons. So it's all those, common interest between all those different groups. Like I said, the communists, the so-called liberal, Al-Baradei party, and Mubarak people.
Do those people have a place for the new Egypt?
Of course they do. Everybody has a place in the new Egypt. But when you're starting using, this kind of language, the blood language, when you start using that, you're taking the country to a civil war for sure. Honestly, I think the people with Islamic background actually are the one that give up a lot actually to try to be consensual, if you will, in this situation. And but the others, afraid that they're not going to get anything. And one of the most funny things after the Constitution actually referendum and people voting yes was won, by 60 some to 30 some. That Hamdan Sabah, for example, said this is a small majority beating a big minority. I mean, he defined a new theory in statistics that way.
Well, we're talking about some of the leader of this group.
Yeah.
Hamdan Sabah is a tremendous, he has a great follower.
Right.
He got about 5 million votes. So this is not like, a small kind of peripheral groups. I mean, there are a lot of Egyptians out there. They still don't trust the brotherhood. They still have some misgiving about them, their history and all that. So where was the future of Egypt now? How Morsi is going to bring those back and gain their trust? Because he cannot run Egypt without them.
Right. Well, two things here. Number one is, from a guy looking at data all day, is I don't think any of those elections, especially the presidential election, will be representative of anything comes in the future at all. Because if there's this a divergent Egypt, if you will, everything is coming to be new. Everybody's learning how to be democratic instead of this fear factor of Mubarak. So everybody's learning. So it's going to take a while for everybody to actually settle down.
To lose.
Exactly. Or to win. What do you do when you win? How everything is. That's number one. So it's, things is going to take time, in my opinion. The second thing, in my opinion, why this is a big fight. The big fight here is actually because Egypt is such a virgin market. There is so unused resources, in the Suez Canal, in the desert, everywhere. And all this stuff were actually going to Mubarak people, where these guys were making billions of dollars off it. So if only actually corruption stopped without building anything, this country will be winning a lot. But add to that, if actually a lot of things haven't happened with the infrastructure and anything added to the country, people whoever is going to do that will be favored to the people. Exactly what happened in Turkey.
And this is not just in Egypt; it's also Tunisia. The Arab Spring now it seems like become an Islamic. It didn't start that way, but now it's having the Islamic flavor are winning in Tunis and Libya and in Egypt. So, are you optimistic in the next few years?
Very much.
Is Morsi gonna finish his term?
Yep. Actually, I I said, it's. I think
half a minute.
he's gonna be able to finish his term. I think once things settle down a little bit, we all want to see things to settle down. The economy to move forward, and I think things will be great from there. It just people stop for a minute, and just catch their breath.